Hello, everyone. Can you still hear me? Okay. That's quite confusing. So today I'm first time in Florence and also in PyCon, Italy. I'm really excited to give this talk. Actually, this talk is definitely not technical. It's just about my favorite food, and I'm going to sell this food to you. I'm a great salesperson from some company. Maybe you will see the name of this company. Actually, I'm just kidding. I'm a software developer. I'm doing Python there. But still, I'm going to sell something today. And of course, it's about Italy. So let's start. The name of the talk is Pelmeni versus Ravioli, meaning services versus microservices. That means that, yes, definitely we will hear something about tech and about software architecture. What's in the talk? I will tell you something about cooking. Then we will try to cook pelmeni and then ravioli. Of course, not here. You don't see any ovens or pans in here. But you can try it out tomorrow, maybe at home, or maybe even today at night. Then we will compare what is better and why. And I will tell you some secrets, some insights, what is better and how to serve them, how to serve pelmeni and ravioli. And maybe at the very end, I will answer the question if there is some life after ravioli. Maybe not. Let's see. Have you seen this picture before? Just raise a hand if you have seen this. We have some people. I saw this picture some time ago, long time ago, and I thought, okay, that's quite interesting. A spaghetti-oriented architecture, everyone knows. What is that? Everyone has some legacy code which is really, really bad. Nobody wants to work with it. Yeah, it's horrible. I also have it at work. Lasagna-oriented, it's way better. It has some layers, but still it's not the perfect one because it's one huge monolith. But yeah, it's tasty. And then the next one is ravioli. It's something which is trending right now. I haven't heard this term ravioli at some tech talks. Never ever, but it's really nice to talk about ravioli at PyCon Italy. I saw also on Wikipedia something about the code, about spaghetti and lasagna, and again about ravioli. What is ravioli code? It's object-oriented programming. It's basically about classes, about isolation, and understanding this scope, but we will not talk about the code, we will talk about architectures. What are pelmeni? Have you ever tried pelmeni? Just raise some hands. Nobody. We have 4 people. That's cool. Let me tell you something. So pelmeni, they're really tasty, they're great. They are like some pasta with filling. So this is something special from Russia and from Ukraine. I'm from Ukraine, living in Germany, so I love pelmeni. And also we have lots of restaurants in Germany where they serve them. There is no sauce. We use mostly cream. And they are kind of separated. They are not going together as lasagna. It's not one huge thing. They are something like a dough and something inside, very tasty. You will have maybe vegan options, but mostly it's with meat. And when you think about pelmeni service architecture, what do you think? It's a service-oriented architecture which is based on services. That means that it supports all the concepts about services. Of course, it's very similar by the name to microservices. Services there, services here, but it's very difficult to understand the difference if they are the same or they are different. I will try to explain you. I found this manifesto about service orientation and about service-oriented architecture, which was published in 2009. But actually, this software architecture, pelmeni, was invented a long time ago. It was already used in enterprises. Maybe they hide something from people. That's why they didn't want to announce it publicly and use it widely. What does it look from our perspective as developers? So we have a web application, the UI. It's nice monolith of the UI, of course. And then on the backend side, we have different services. We have orchestration service, business service, data access service, and we have some databases. So all those services, they share databases. They're not using one database per one service. And if we take a closer look, service-oriented architecture will have 4 different types of services: business services, enterprise services, application services, and infrastructure services. And of course, message bus between them. The point of this architecture is to help to enterprise to transfer all the business needs to our IT level. Because, of course, developers will tell to the business how to write the software and what kind of output will they give. But the business dictates how should it work. So the business should define how the business works and how the app will work, because those are the wise guys, they earn a lot of money, and they know how to do the stuff. And of course, they want something particular. They cannot really come to IT and tell, hey, guy, we need this and that, and then they will get it. No, of course not. They will not get it, because we are quite complex people. We don't like all those definitions from business people who don't know how it works, and they're kind of the wise people. And this architecture pattern will help to transfer those business requirements and show them to the business people, and we will not care about anything in the requirement. So the message bus will transfer all the business logics into our language. For example, we have business requirement to have the data format year, and then months, and then day. But our IT side will dictate that endpoint will give you the opposite, the day, and then the month, and then the year. But message bus will transfer it, and nobody cares. So it will still work. What are ravioli? Who can tell me what is ravioli? What are? Somebody? Yes?
Similar to Pelmeni, it's still a sort of a pasta with a filling inside. What do you mean? Not only that.
Okay, thank you. So I got the answer that ravioli is pasta with some filling inside, similar to pelmeni. Yes, that's what I found in Wikipedia. But the difference that it's Italian pasta, of course, it's not Russian. Probably if you think about ravioli, you will see something like that in the internet. Of course, nothing about microservices. But from my point of view, I will say this. Of course, if you have monolith and you want to transfer it to microservices, you're thinking, okay, there are so many advantages of microservices. And if I have this really bad code and I will transfer it to microservices, it will look great, it will work great. No, it will not. If you have bad code, then you will have the bad code. It doesn't work. You have to tell me every time. You will have the bad code in microservices. Better? And now? Okay. Of course, you will see Netflix name everywhere around, microservices and Netflix and this black star on the top. And also all the success stories from Groupon, Amazon, and client. But what's inside? Inside there are microservices. Those are also the small services and also the big monolith of the UI and databases. Databases are separated per service. So microservices are not sharing databases. They use one per one microservice. They prefer not to share information. So let's see. We see Pelmeni in here, and also I added something special, the popcorn architecture, which is more trendy right now. It's Lambda function. I saw that Pelmeni architecture appeared after Lasagna at the same time as Ravioli, but after some investigation, I found that it was long time before. And now still we are using Ravioli or the new fancy popcorn thingy. So let's see all the advantages and the disadvantages of those architectures. Here we have Pelmeni and Ravioli. They look almost the same. But are they really different? Did I convince you that they are different? Probably not. So they also look the same to me. And what's the difference? There is definitely a difference, because if I'm given the stock, of course it's a difference. From the monolithic point of view, the size is different. In service architecture, nothing is defined. The size of the service is not defined. In microservice architecture, it's defined that microservice should serve one small goal, do one small task. In service architecture, it's just doing the job. It should do something, no matter what. And if we are going to extend some features, then we will create some new microservice. But in the case of service-oriented architecture, we will probably add this feature into the service. We can reuse the service. We can do what we want. In microservice architecture, we will even copy-paste the code and start a new something instead of just adding more and more features into one microservice. That's the first difference. And the main difference is that Pelmeni architecture, they share as much as possible. And Ravioli, they share nothing, as little as possible, but ideally nothing. So the idea why service architecture was created, it's because all the enterprises, they had an issue. They had, for example, customer who wanted to sign up for different branches of the company, and every branch has everything separated. So the customer should go to the first branch and ask to create the account, and then to the second, and then to the third. And what if the customer will decide to leave the company and go to the other one? Then they should go to the first, the second, and the third, and all the other departments. And because of that, they decided to have something in common, so they created one database and then just shared those resources within all the services. Benefits of this architecture. It's, of course, concept of the service, reusability, as I just said, and complex event processing. So the first one. It will use all the benefits of the service. Of course, it will have the message pass between services, so we don't care about requirements of the business, we just do the job. And because of that, we will have successful enterprise. The next one, reuse of services. As I said before, they really love using services which are already there and extending them and sharing databases. So they share as much as possible. And also complex event processing. So as they are getting all of those requirements from the business side, of course, they could change requirements quite often, and then they don't need to create a new microservice to fulfill those requirements, or maybe change something to be consistent. They just need to adapt, and it's really quickly because you change just one small thing in a message pass, and then it works. Benefits of microservices. It's continuous deployment, scalability, fault isolation, and technology commitment. Let's take a closer look. So the first one, easier to understand small services. Yes, that's true, but it's really hard to debug. For example, if we have 100 services or 500 in Netflix and we have 20 people, for example, how do you do that? It's not even possible. Of course, if the company has microservice architecture, everyone wants to have it. And I have met some companies, they have 5 microservices for 6 people. That's kind of nice, maybe. They are really proud of themselves because they have a microservice architecture. That they, yes, kind of have it. But still, it's really hard to debug and see from outside. Microservices are independent. That's very true. That's how it should be. But is it really so in all the companies? Yes, it should be, but really not. Let me tell you some story. For example, we have some services. We have 5 of them. And then one service decided to die. What should happen? Everything else should work, but it will not. So the service A, which is requiring something from the service C, and service D is requiring something from service C, and then if service D would do some actions after it gets some information from the C, then of course it will not work at all, and then we are losing almost the whole structure. We will have service A, which is doing something, but not really working. And then if you have the website based on this, then probably it would die completely. You will have the page, which is not doing anything. And also the next example, it's kind of the same story. If you have one central service, which is doing a lot of everything afterwards, and then if D and E died, then kind of B and C and G, everything died. Then we have some services, microservices, which are working, but sort of no. Scalability. Yes, of course, it's great. It's super cool. But if you will see all the Netflix videos and also successful stories from Google, they also have some great examples. It will work, yes, it works. They have great ideas. So everyone thinks that everyone can do the same, or maybe not. Actually, it's not true. If you think that it's just so easy, you just start and it works. No, it doesn't work like that. You just start and you fail again, and you start again, and you again fail. So if you don't know how to do it, it's better to ask some people to ask how they build those complex architectures, or maybe it's better to start with monolith. Because if it's the small company, not so many people, maybe it's really faster and easier, and it's cheaper, of course. So I'm not so sure about scalability at the very beginning, and also about using microservices if people who are developing are not sure how to work with them. And of course, it's easy to use different technologies for different microservices. That's very true. I cannot complain. That works. So how to cook ravioli, this short guide. You should create one database per one service, and then make microservices as small as possible. But actually, that's not true, because some of the companies, they are making them so small, so it's really even smaller than it should be, and then they are ending up with 200 microservices, which are redundant, and then, of course, 200 databases. That's a bit of overhead. Of course, deploying in containers, and do separate builds for each microservice. There are lots of trade-offs associated with microservice architecture, especially debugging and also costs, because if some new developer is coming to the team and the team has 20 microservices, that's quite hard to jump into, because all those connections, if they are not documented, then it's really taking some time, some months, maybe half of a year. And what about front-end? Usually, front-end is a big monolith as well. Of course, here we are on the Python conference, we don't care about front-end, but usually everyone cares. And there is an answer about monolith on the front end. Some people already tried and implemented successfully micro front ends. For example, we have one page, and we have on this page 3 different languages. Something is shared, yeah, of course, it could happen. But if the team is different, it could be something like Frankenstein. with different styles even on the same page. There are different approaches how to create microservices for front end. Basically, should be something like that. So each dedicated team develops front end and also back end. So then it looks kind of consistent in some way. So those are approaches which were developed by people. They already use them. The worst one probably is iframes. And I saw single SPA made a framework. It looks really great. On one page they have really different languages and it works. I didn't check the code, but it worked somehow and it was really fast. And the other way to have different endpoints for different languages and for different microservices. For example, you have client information specific page which is developed in React, and then the other one in Vue.js or something like that, and then you simply go from one to the other one. So is there a life after Ravioli? Yes, there is something, and I could suggest you something. Probably is the most useful and the best way how to develop. Just stop writing the code. It's very easy to start, easy to deploy, and to extend, to scale. Everything is possible. So thank you for listening. Those are the slides for the presentation. If you are curious. Do you have any questions? Because I also have something special at the end.
Hi. In the service infrastructure, you talk about shared resources. Isn't that dangerous? So many subjects in the architecture are dealing with the same resource in different ways. And is there some kind of strategy to avoid confusion on the same resource?
Thank you. It's a great question. Of course, it's dangerous. That's why we have microservices. And because of that, we don't want to lose some kind of information. That's why in microservices we have Saga pattern where when we are saving some transactions. But in this architecture, we are trying to make sure that it will work. But of course, you never know. Database could fail. And even if we are opening too many connections, it could die. Yeah, could happen. Yes.
Can I eat pelmeni with ketchup, or will I be kicked out from the restaurant?
I think you can. The most important that you eat pelmeni in the restaurant. If you order it and then you eat them, and yes, you can try. It's not Italian pasta, so yes, of course, it's allowed.
That's the difference. Here we have a difference. Great answer.
Italian pasta is better without. Any other question? Come on.
Thank you for your presentation. Do you have or have you ever worked on metrics for picking up the choice between microservices and service-oriented or monolithic application using, your framework the framework that you presented today? So, did you have any metrics or a framework to evaluate the choices between microservices and more older strategy?
Do you mean that are there any metrics? What is faster or better in terms of architecture, or do you want to ask about metrics, how to implement them in those architectures?
With metrics, I mean, for example, if your team is that big, or there is a ratio between your team and the number of expected microservices, or for example, the esteemed complexity of the application, or the number of microservices that you expect to have and their relations, or whatever metrics, I mean, that could help you in deciding.
Okay, thank you for the question. Probably it's the bad choice to count how many people you have. It depends on your project and on the business. If business dictates something and you have to follow it, then it's better to go for service-oriented architecture, and then it would be really easy to separate those services, because one service kind of a small monolith, I would say, and then you can break it down to small microservices in the future and to make it more stable and extendable. So it's better to start with something smaller. If the team is big and you are starting building everything in microservices, that's kind of no, I think. You have to start with small parts. And if you're creating one new project or moving from monolith to some architecture, that's different. So if you are moving from monolith to some architecture and you are deciding which architecture to choose, it's better to separate to some services, maybe not so micro, and then separate them to microservices, even break it down further in the latest stages, but not at the very beginning.
Anyone else?
I wanted to ask you whether you've ever been in Bologna and tried lasagna, and if the answer is yes, do you ever pine lasagnas? I mean, my company makes a heavy use of microservices, and I think that we have lost lots of issues because of that. Like, for example, everyone is specialized on one particular microservice and doesn't know anything about his own dependency. So when you need something new, you most likely wanted to change your dependency to allow for your new requirement, but you cannot. There is a political problem. You have to speak with another team, to speak with another manager. You have to persuade them that your need is really important for them, and they have to prioritize your need. And also, you don't even know whether it's possible or not, or it's feasible, or there are other strategies to achieve what you want, because your field of view is limited to your own stuff, which most of the time is extremely limited. It's just one simple thing that it's like when you are a factory worker, then you see things coming out of an opening on one side of the wall on a rolling tape, and you have to do one simple thing on that, and you see the thing going out from the other side, and you don't know what's happening before and what's happening after. Have you ever experienced this kind of stuff with microservices?
Yes, of course, and for that we have dedicated teams. So we are gathering team leads of all different teams. So you are not alone. You know some people around. You don't have to know everyone, but you know at least one person from the domain with a bunch of microservices, and then they could talk with each other, so they are not developing one feature and just throwing it, and then everything is broken. We also have some versioning, which is a really good way, so we are kind of saving the old versions and reusing them in later. So we could delete the old versions of the services, of microservices in the future, but then we're kind of copy-pasting and adding some logics to the new service.
No one else? Are you sure? Okay, so we have finished. Thank you.